Okay, 8577. 2810.
Hello.
All right, Evo, hello.
What's happening? Oh, my colors. Look at my lips. I think my color saturation might be a little off. Allow me to adjust that because that looks like I've been like eating, I don't know. That's horrible. I can't.
Listen, you look like you're. Evo, hello.
Why is it repeating? It's repeating itself.
Hold on.
My color saturation
That's not a good thing.
might be a little off.
That's yeah. Well, I've been trying to figure out the streaming plus Zoom thing, Evo, and
Yeah.
basically Zoom gives you the option to stream to Facebook or YouTube.
Right.
So
Right.
I decided to stream to YouTube and then copy that link to Facebook and Twitter.
Yeah.
But it opened up a separate YouTube window, which
is about 4 seconds behind, and so
right.
yeah, we can.
So I've now closed that window, but is it still streaming live to YouTube? I don't know.
That's a really good idea. We could leave that open and like use it as you know, I worked in radio for a while, and you got the what we call the cough button, which was also called the fuck button because because you would jump out a delay if you drop the F-bomb, and then they would suddenly be suddenly live, and then the producer going, don't say anything else because
I gotcha. Now is this your house?
Yes, I am at my home. This is my home studio. The second bedroom has become the office. We have a fold out couch, you know, things like that. But no, it is a sound studio here at Shivo Studios. Yes.
Oh, excellent. Well, I stayed up late celebrating last night by writing 2 articles for Forbes so I can get paid.
So you can get some money.
Yeah,
money's good.
And then I realized that I made more with that one interview article with Inverse than I did with 5 articles for Forbes. So I've decided I'm not going to do those anymore unless it's like a celebrity interview I can't turn down.
Oh well, then you do those things, right? So yeah, welcome to life. Well, as you know, as a freelance writer, you do have to you get the biz where you can, man.
That's the deal. I don't know if you saw, I've got an interview with Inverse on Monday.
That's fantastic.
It is. I'm pretty excited about that, actually.
Kicking.
Yeah.
Kicking.
So,
right on.
I was hoping it'd be my first interview of 2020, but instead it'll be my first of 2021. I got 0 interviews in 2020.
Well, 2020 was a shit year for most of us. You perhaps more than others like me. So yeah, here's the 21. And I think, by the way, now we can drop the 20.
Yeah.
We can now just do like the last 2 digits.
Yeah.
You know, I was born in 21, or I did something in 22, or whatever else. I don't want to say 2021 any longer, right?
You're right. I've been looking forward to this for a while. You know.
Yeah, I think when we're out of the teens, you know, now we can say the 20s.
Sure.
Was we're in the 20s now, and there will be the 30s and the 40s and the 50s. But you know, those of us that were, well, I wasn't around for the 20s, but you know, that's the weird, you know, now the turn of the century, when we say, because I said that in conversation a couple of days ago, I said, you know, back at the turn of the century, and I didn't have to justify, you know, the most recent one, but so it's kind of nice. Here we are in that spot.
Yeah. Yeah. Fun stuff. So anyway,
is Jenny here, or is that not really?
Jenny's here. She doesn't know if she's going to share a story or not.
Oh.
I didn't know about it until yesterday, and I didn't prepare. I don't know. We'll see.
This is an unprepared show, Jenny. You're welcome to call or put your video on, whatever you want to do.
Was Jenny on the call last time that I was on?
No.
Okay.
No, just met her recently. We went out for coffee.
Ah.
Yeah.
Out for coffee recently?
Well, we met outside for coffee, not inside. Okay, but that makes it feel better. And everyone watching outside. Okay.
All right.
All
Yeah,
right.
we have to clarify our positions on this stuff. We don't
Yeah.
want to drop dead like a Republican senator. So,
Listen,
right.
we're not partying like we're in Florida here, you know.
Or yeah, not a Mar-a-Lago with Vanilla Ice. Okay, there's where the trouble began when your headline act was Vanilla Ice at Mar-a-Lago. Anyhow,
right.
You want me to tell a story about the troubles of 2020 that have nothing to do with the pandemic?
If you have, I would love that. Now, again, I was way too tired and busy this week to properly promote this, so I'm not sure if there'll be any other guests.
That's fine.
You and Jenny for an hour.
Look, man, I'm just here. I'm just here to chat. It's the whole thing.
Me too. Yeah. I'm just wondering if this open mic thing is like too intimidating for people. Even if I compressed it to an hour, am I just going to have to start just booking guests like a regular show? Is that?
Yeah, I mean, you probably need an anchor guest. If I had to come up with an idea for you, yeah, an anchor guest is probably a good idea. And the others can join and just kind of chat around. But hey, you do you. It's a
an anchor guest. You mean get one of my like high profile 10,000 follower friends? You mean?
Right. Yeah. Right. Yeah, not me.
It's you.
Maybe Jenny.
What do you have? 5,000?
I don't know.
All right.
I don't know. A handful. A handful.
Okay. Well, cool. Go for it.
Anyhow, yeah. Well, I was, since you've shared many of your medical woes over time, I thought I'd share a little bit of my medical woes from 2020. Okay. The horrible year that it was. And I don't know how much of this you already know, so I'm just going to start at the beginning. But I'll give a spoiler alert. I had 2 operations last year. Yeah. One quasi emergency, like let's get this guy scheduled in like 24 to 48 hours, not life and death, but clearly in pain. And then another one to fix what didn't get fixed the first time around, and then a raging infection afterwards. But that's the end. Let me go back to the beginning. So back when we didn't know that we were all going to be locked in, I was at Podcast Movement Evolutions in Los Angeles.
Okay.
Podcast Movement Evo. No, that was PodFest, which went after that.
Okay.
So, but before that, I think it was in February. Maybe it was in March. I forget the dates.
I went to one in March also, while everyone else was in LA for something.
Got it. So there was the LA thing was Podcast Movement Evolutions.
Right. And it's funny, at that very same moment while I was doing that, the one I was at was in Brooklyn, since I'm just East Coast and I'm not flying anywhere.
Right.
It was one of the guys from Welcome to Night Vale. I was like, shouldn't you be in Los Angeles?
Yeah, but that was a new Podcast Movement thing. So he maybe got the invite to go to the East Coast, which he probably is happy with now, because after that we weren't traveling much anymore.
Oh no, it wasn't Podcast Movement. It was On Air Fest in Brooklyn, which is more.
That was what was counter to.
Right, it was more. That's more narrative podcast hosts and NPR type stuff, which is
totally makes sense. Yeah, which I would love to go to something like that, and not just the standard all things podcasting. But anyhow, that's fine. So anyhow, I'm in the West. I'm in Phoenix, so did a quick little drive, and suddenly I'm in LA.
University of Phoenix.
That is here, but University of Phoenix, it really is. I mean, it is here, but they're kind of everywhere. It's kind of one of those things. But anyhow, so I'm in LA at PodFest. No, not PodFest. At Podcast Movement, and I was supposed to have. I had a dinner engagement with someone to meet and talk about business, but I had to text this person. She runs an advertising agency. I won't say her name, but it's Heather from True Native Media. And I was supposed to have dinner with her, but I had to text her and said, I cannot meet you in 30 minutes because I am currently at urgent care. Because, well, I didn't tell her what was wrong, but I'll tell you and Jenny and whoever else is wrong. I had something called hematuria. Do you know what hematuria is?
Not a clue.
Pissing blood.
That sounds bad.
Sounds like something I'd never done before, right? Yeah. That was new.
Yeah.
Had never had that happen. So urgent care definitely seemed like a wise thing to do. And I mean, I'm talking about this. This is the color. This is a lovely rose gose that I'm having here. But this is about the color that was coming out. So that wasn't normal. So they said, well, it's either prostate problems because I'm old, or it might be kidney stones. Do you have any pain? I said, I got no pain. I just have this coming out. So she said, well, I don't know. The good news is they did a quick little, test, and they said there's no bacteria. There's not a crazy level of white blood cell counts or things we'd be really, really concerned with. So it's probably not life-threatening. No need to go to the ER. So just, go see your primary care physician when you're back in Phoenix. So get back to Phoenix, see the primary care physician, sends me down to get a CAT scan on the whole lower portion, midsection of me. Mm-hmm. A couple of days later, go back to the doctor to get the results, and he says, well, you have a 7 millimeter kidney stone.
Right.
And he said, that's pretty big. I said, well, what should we do? And he said, well, you probably should go see a urologist for that. So I said, okay, I'll go see a urologist for that. But first, I have to go across the country and go to PodFest in Orlando. So got on a plane, flew to PodFest Orlando because most of the blood had died down at that time. I wasn't doing quite as much as it was. Mm-hmm. So anyhow, get back home, finally see the urologist, which is like literally downstairs from my doctor. See the urologist. And he sends me down for it. Before I go see him, he says, well, instead of that CAT scan, let's get what's called as a KUB, which is a kidney x-ray. So send me down for that. I get that done. And he says, Dr. Nafisi, my original doctor, said you had a 7 millimeter kidney stone, but he's wrong. It's a 9 millimeter stone. Now, I didn't know what 7 millimeters was. I don't have an appreciation in my brain for the size of a millimeter. I mean, I know that I can do the conversion, but it didn't work. But 9 millimeter, that's a bullet. Yeah. So that made sense to me, how big that actually was. And so he says, so we need to get you scheduled for a procedure right away. And I said, well, why? He said, well, because your ureters, 1 to 2 millimeters, about all that thing, you got a 9 millimeter stone in there. He said, people who have 2 millimeter stones are grown men like yourself who are just laid out in pain because of these. Well, I've had absolutely no pain. And this doctor's like, well, it's in your kidney. I guess it could break up, or it could kind of go away. It's on its own, or go do surgery. So he explained the surgery options, and none of those sounded very exciting. And he was like, a little non-committal about it. So I said, well, let's just ignore it. What a great idea. Let's just ignore this 9 millimeter rock.
That's what I'm doing with my root canal right now.
Well, hopefully you have a better outcome than I did. So time passes. Now suddenly we're in the lockdown. Nothing's really happening. And it was sometime in October. I was laying on the couch one night and was racked by the most intense pain I've ever had in my life. Just froze me solid. Couldn't do anything. Couldn't move. My wife really wanted me to go to the ER because the pain was that terrible and bad. It was just atrocious. So called the doctor, and they sent orders down to the local x-ray place, went in for another x-ray, and I'm just like massively in pain during this whole time. Take a picture of it, and sure enough, that 9 millimeter stone is trying to leave. It's trying to come out. So I'm in the doctor's office, and he says, well, we need to do the surgeries now. Let's get you in. So that's when they did the emergency, like 24 hours later. I am going in to get my kidneys removed, where they do the pounding thing on the back. They call it a sonic lithotripsy is the word for that. It's a lovely little thing. So I'm in the hospital. I'm doped up on medication they prescribed, and also medication I can get my hands on because I live in Arizona. So I am just high as a kite, in massive amounts of pain, go through the surgery, don't even remember anything of the process. Right. Come out of the surgery, doctor says it went fine. According to my wife, everything's fine. We'll go get the x-ray follow-up. So I did the x-ray follow-up 2 weeks later. They came back, and his assistant called me and said, you have now an 8 millimeter stone. So we shaved a millimeter off with this lovely surgery thing. So shit, that's not going to work. So what are we going to do now? So they said, well, we have to go do another surgery. But this time we're going to do the laser lithotripsy, where they use a laser. And that's what blasts the stone. Now, this surgery, they don't make an incision. They use the natural opening to get up into the kidney. Snaking on up in there and blast it with a laser. So apparently that did the trick. I don't remember that either because I was also pretty high because it was still, pretty much in pain for the whole process. But finally, when I get out like that next Friday, like, oh, things are better. I'm fine. There's no problem whatsoever. Now, the trick is here, though. When they do the laser surgery, they put in what is known as a stent. And the stent goes from the top of the kidney down through the bladder so that it leaves it open in the event there's any sand or leftover little rocks. It's a bigger hole so things can fall out naturally. That has to be removed in 2 weeks. And it's removed in the doctor's office without any anesthesia. So go to the doctor's office and do that procedure, which I will not describe to you. I will tell you this. It wasn't nearly as bad as I thought it was going to be because, being a boy, that we were a little concerned when people were messing around down there, but it wasn't nearly as bad as I'd psyched myself up for. But the whole thing is done in the office. So they did it. They pulled this long tube out of me and said, okay, you're good to go. Clean up and you're fine. I was like, oh, finally, now that little discomfort was gone. This is great. This is wonderful. Everything's great. 24 hours later, I had 103.5 degree fever. And when you get 103.5 degree fever during the COVID-19 pandemic, you think the worst. But it wasn't that, luckily. All it was what they call iatrogenic infection, because somehow when they shoved this thing inside of me to pull out the other thing inside of me, some bacteria hung out on it. So that got all the way to 104.1. 3 different types of antibiotics to trying to figure out which one would finally kick this thing's ass, and like a month-long regiment of them before I felt like a normal human once again, and all things were fine. So I didn't have to go to the hospital for COVID-19. I had to have 2 nasty kidney stones and a horrible infection afterwards. So I'm here to tell you, if they say you have kidney stones, just schedule surgery that day. That very day. Do not wait. This is the worst thing you as a man. Well, I don't know about you. You've been through a lot of bad shit. But for most men, this is a pretty painful thing. I have heard it as akin to the pain of labor, but I'm not going there because I've never done that. Yeah. I've been responsible for one labor, but I didn't actually experience that labor. So no, I'm not going to say that, but it was pretty rotten. I don't recommend it for anybody.
Wow. Well, that's the...
So there's your story, or my story.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Wow, that's a good one. Thanks everybody. Thank you. I'm sure the one person is clapping, watching from YouTube right now.
That's awesome. I appreciate that.
Yeah.
All right, Jenny, what's your story? Since I've warmed up the room.
There you go.
Gosh, I might need some more time to think about it. I haven't had any health emergencies. So
well, it doesn't have to be health emergencies. It could just be something terrible. Anyway, listen, I can regale you with plenty more horror medical stories that aren't 2020 related. In fact, I think I will, since Evo already went there. This is not like my great 2010 story from when my stomach ruptured. This is right. No, this is more of like a disappointing period of my life and a series of hospital visits. It was December 4 years ago, I think, or three, 4. Christmas. Okay, I had some relatives in town. They wanted to play cards, and this is a cousin / aunt of mine, my dad's cousin. What is that? What does your dad's cousin make to you? Does that make her a second cousin?
Depends on which cousin it is to you, but yes, it's one. I think there might be a twice removed in there, but I've never been able to follow that.
Anyway, I think that's it. Anyway, and she already had her intestines removed, so she has one of those internal like colon bag things you might have heard.
Oh, right.
I can't remember the name of them. I'm not using the medical terms you're using because I haven't had to deal with that part. But so anyway, but for some reason she thought because once she had those removed, she could eat whatever she wanted, and Crohn's disease doesn't matter. So her whole house is like terrible food, and I was eating it just because they had nothing else. And I didn't get very hungry from Crohn's disease, and then I wound up in the hospital the next night, just because I had this tremendous pain because. And it was Christmas, and so of course there's a lot of people in the emergency room, and I was waiting for like 4 hours. I finally get in. I'm in there for 4 days, and they claim it was. I don't remember if they claimed it was an infection or an inflammation, both INF terms. Maybe they switched those around, but whatever it was, they got it wrong. They got it wrong, and then of course the following month was January. And that was it was an early Trump year. So he'd caused so much chaos in our healthcare system
Sure.
my local insurance carrier no longer carried my previous health care plan, which meant all my deductibles had not been met. So because they did whatever they did wrong in December, I had to go
Mhm.
back to the hospital, except I went to a different hospital system to fix it, and that cost a lot of money. And then
Yeah, reset. Mm.
right, and then whatever they gave me was I thought was right, but then I ended up going 2 more times to emergency rooms for 4 days each in January, February, and March. And right before Christmas, I had enough money saved up. I was planning to move to LA to do acting at
Mm.
that time, like 3-4 years ago. Um, Needless to say, I did not go because then I was $10,000 in debt again after just a few years short of having declared bankruptcy and wiping out all my debt from my previous
Oh
time in New York City.
man.
Um, so then I did a terrible marketing job. I hated for a whole year to wipe out that debt again. I was
Do what you got
selling.
to do, right?
I was selling, promoting these flavored nicotine pouches in like stores like gas stations like 7-Elevens. You put it in your
Sure.
mouth, if you get this nicotine rush. Some people love it. I tried it. It just feels like my inside is burning, so I cannot use them. Anyway, some people swear by them. So I would just be sitting there on this stool telling people about it, and some people would just call me the devil or say, "Man, I quit 30 years ago." I'm like, "That's great. That's really great." And like I get like pastors walk in, and I'm like, "Hey, I'm just here doing this thing that you hate, trying to make a living." Meanwhile, the job pays great, but it really feels like it's sucking my soul. And I did that for a whole
Yeah.
year. And then fortunately, I didn't have to do it anymore because the company got bought out, and so the program ended after a year. But I paid my medical debt off but I wouldn't have had to pay it off if the hospital hadn't been so backed up that they'd done the wrong treatment to me in December.
Right. Right.
Because I get Humira on a monthly basis, which costs about $5,000 a month. I don't know if you're aware of that. It
Mm.
doesn't cost me.
Right.
I need to do a video blog in this or a TikTok or something. Basically, um, Humira is one of the most widely prescribed drugs in America. But since it's $5,000 a month, almost no one pays for it because most people don't have $5,000 a month to
Yeah.
pay for medical care. So yeah, I pay $0 for it, but that means
Wow.
someone is paying for it, and everyone's insurance is going up because of me, and the whole system. But um,
Mm.
so we're losing the thread. Where was I going with that one, Evo? Help me
You
out.
we're talking about how much of the money and spent in the hospitals and all that
Right.
stuff. So
Yeah. Oh, all right. Because of that, I meet my medical and deduction caps relatively quickly after I get that
yeah.
first prescription. So
Right.
that 5,000 just meets the threshold immediately in January. So yeah, but it was it was the worst. So anyway, so after like 4 visits to the hospital, well, after 3, by the 4th one, they realized that what happened was I had scar tissue from my 2010 surgery
Mm.
that was causing a blockage, and that's what it was the whole time.
Oh
Yeah.
man.
So that's the story.
Yeah. Let's hear
Yeah,
it for the best healthcare system in the world, shall we?
yeah. There you go. Well, I mean, funny story about that. I have a friend who's a film director in Norway, and as you know, most of the other countries in the most of the other first world countries in the world have free or taxable or deducted health care of some sort.
Right. Right.
However, what this means is they aren't paying their doctors as much. Vis-a-vis, they don't necessarily have like A+ doctors like we do in America.
Okay.
Let's say they have A- doctors or B+ at best. Those B+ doctors told her they could not treat her stage 4 breast cancer. She had stage 4 breast cancer. So
Wow.
their advice to her was just find some place to be comfortable for 6 months. Right?
At home hospice. Oh
Yeah.
man.
Have fun with that. So she came to America and right before the pandemic started in New York City. I didn't get to meet her because she was so weak all the time. I was actually trying to meet her
Yeah.
week at the On Air Fest, and she would pop up for an hour and then crash. And anyway, it didn't work out. But The point is, doctors in New York could treat her, but it ended up costing over $200,000 because she's not an American citizen, she cannot get
So you
our
get
insurance.
nothing. Right.
Our insurance.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it was like, yeah, so she had, fortunately, she's fairly popular in the independent film community of being of an attractive ilk and having made one fairly, if not commercially successful, critically successful film.
Sure.
And had a lot of well-connected friends, and I think she's paid off most of it.
Raise the funds to do it. Yeah. Good.
Yeah. So if only there's some crazy way we could have like good doctors and lower cost healthcare. How crazy would that be?
Well, I know it's not impossible because, as you know, I spent about 3 years living abroad.
Yeah.
And we lived in Bangkok, in Thailand for a while. And Thailand has amazing medical service, amazing medical service. And the doctors in Thailand don't follow that pattern you mentioned. They, I won't say all of them because that's not the case, but many of them, and most of them that work at the private hospitals that we went to, most of them, I shouldn't say most, many of them got their medical training abroad. Many of them in America, but not all, but also in Canada, in lots of places in Europe. And then when they got their medical degrees, they wound up, then they moved back to Thailand, and they're teaching abroad in various things. So these are the people that are training the new physicians that are out there. So Thailand, at least in Bangkok, and at least the private hospitals, has really amazing medical care. My wife developed a staph infection.
I'm sorry they weren't soon enough to help poor David Carradine.
That's true. Well, yeah, there's a different thing. Autoerotic asphyxiation has its own, self-limiting challenges, right? Just gonna walk the earth. Anyhow, so she developed a staph infection while we were there, and our son had a staph infection many, many years ago here in America, and he spent like 6 days in the hospital on IVs, and that cost a fortune. So she's got it in Bangkok. We're like, fuck, what are we gonna do? So she did 6 days of IV antibiotic. But we didn't have to, they wanted to keep her in the hospital.
Yeah.
But they said, you don't have to. I mean, you can go home and you can just show up every day.
Right.
And we'll just do the infusion thing with you. And so we said, we'll just take that option rather than, stay in the hospital. Didn't make a whole lot of sense. So 6 days of that, she saw 3 different doctors, a surgeon because I had to cut the cyst out that had become staph infected and all the other one. And the bill, she had insurance. Just because she's working there. She was a principal of a private school in Thailand at the time. And so she had insurance. It wasn't great insurance. It wasn't anything amazing insurance. So there was still a lot we had to pay. But I believe the total cost, if we had no insurance, I think the total cost would have been $6,000. Which is, imagine what that would have been in here.
Yeah.
We need to add at least 1 zero to that number, and then maybe change some other things around with it as well.
But the great thing about our healthcare system is if you add 2 more zeros, then you can't pay for it, and then they forgive you the full amount because well, that's what happened to me with my 2010 operation. I didn't tell you that.
No, I don't know about that. Mm-mm.
Oh, okay. Well, why not? Why not? I got it.
Sure.
Okay. Well, I'll just start at the beginning for folks who don't know. Okay. So I developed, actually starting in college in 1996, I started getting terrible diarrhea, and nobody wants to talk about that. So I just assumed, well, normal. A couple of years later, started getting regular bouts of pain, but only about once a year for like 5 minutes at a time. Obviously, like I grew up in America. I don't have a primary care doctor.
Right.
What is that? So I didn't go see a doctor ever until 2004 when I started projectile vomiting out the window one time. then I went, and then he wanted me to take a cousin of Humira called Remicade, which he said would basically knock out my immune system and leave me vulnerable to all kinds of diseases.
Sign me up, doc.
Right. So my mom is a big independent health thinker. I'll call her that. Like herbs and muscle testing.
I understand. That. Right. Alternative medicines.
Alternative medicine. She's an alternative medicine, not expert, what would you call that? A booster, a backer,
Yes.
a proponent of.
Proponent. Yeah.
Anyway,
Right.
so I was basically scared off of those things because of her, and maybe a little bit of me too. But the point is, I didn't take them, and then I moved to New York in 2005, and then 5 years later, um, after I've been working all night for Toyota, making a lot of money at a car event at a Giants game. Came home, went to bed, woke up an hour later, and it felt like my stomach was on fire.
Oh.
Yeah, it was a good time, Jenny. I couldn't sleep all night, but I didn't immediately think to go to the emergency room because I've been having bouts of pain for like last 10 or 15 years, and they had all gone away. So
Sure.
I assumed this
This
one
will
would
go away too.
Exactly. You have to live by what you know. Since of course I wasn't going to see a therapist either because again it costs money. Um, you know, so it's so the next day I told my friend I can't meet you to start that marketing company we've been planning on starting. He was also my kung fu trainer, and he said, "Quit being lazy, get out of bed."
Sure.
He laughs about it now. He's like, "Quit being lazy," I told you.
Yeah.
And then at that point, the pain had lessened because what had happened was my intestines had actually ruptured internally, so they were no longer pounding on my colon, and they were just freely flowing inside my
That's
stomach.
sepsis.
That
That's
is
sepsis.
That's right. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah,
Thank
you're
you for your
welcome.
medical terminology. Anyway, and then the next day, so I was still there in bed, still didn't go to the hospital. And my family would call. I'd say, "Yeah, I'm doing better." I'm sure I told them that. I don't remember, but I was in touch with them regularly. I'm sure I said I was doing better. Then the next day, I got a call from casting because I'm an actor. Hey, do you want to come down to set today and be Kiefer Sutherland stand-in? I said, "Yeah, sure, why not?
Yeah.
Let's do that." So the next day, so 3 days later now, since I've been in bed, I rouse myself and leave my apartment for the first time in 3 days, walk up the subway, go into Manhattan. I was living in Astoria, Queens. It's
Mhm.
about 10 subway stops. Get in and just like slump over in this chair like this. And then the casting lady looks at me and she's like, "Are you okay?" I said, "Well, not really, but I mean, I'm just standing in. How much energy
Yeah.
does it really take to do that? You just, you know." Anyway, I actually lost my first stand-in role in the early 2000s for Michael Douglas because I hadn't had experience. And then they said, "Oh, that's too bad. Michael Douglas's people wanted to make sure his stand-in had experience." I was like, you know,
Experience standing.
right.
But anyhow.
Anyway,
Yeah.
I was living in Virginia at the time. There was very little union acting work, so no TV shows or movies filmed in my area. So
Right,
to do anything, I had
right.
to travel 3 or 4 hours to DC or North Carolina. Anyway, but now living in New York City, I'd had stand-in experience before by virtue of just being in the union, and eventually all the non-union extras leave, and they're like, "Oh wait, we need someone here. Just come
That's
over."
you.
Anyway, that's me. So I go. So they said, "I think we should send you home." So they sent me home. I was really mad. And by the way, they still haven't paid me for that, and they should because I'm in the union. Look at my
Right.
contract.
Raise your scale.
All right, you show up. That's it. So I said, "Fine. Oh, I guess I'll go to urgent care," and the doc takes my hand like this and checks my pulse, and he says, "You're a very brave man. How do you want to go to the hospital? How do you want to go?" So I see my life flashing before my eyes, and I'm one of
Yeah.
those. Maybe you are too. Kind of sees your life in cinematic terms, like chapter to chapter, narrative structure and all that. And do you think of yourself in that way sometimes?
No, I don't
No,
actually.
I
So
think
yeah, my life is a series of resets.
I got
So
you.
yeah.
Well, that's just me. It's
Yeah.
from growing up and watching Garden State, and anyway,
Maybe that was it. Yeah.
probably life's dramatic. Anyway, so I said he actually said you could call a cab or I could call an ambulance. So I said let's do this the right way, thinking I'm dying. So
Yeah.
so these two 6'5" dudes show up, pick me up in the chair, and literally carry me out with the chair into the ambulance outside, strap me in. And then 8 hours later, I am sedated, and I do not remember anything for the next 3 days except they literally carved out my stomach to I woke up like a V shape. a V
Oh.
shape.
Wow.
They had really plowed in there. Now, my family and a few friends claim they talked to me, and I maybe like mumbled back something, but I don't know. Would you say I was actually unconscious, or what would you call that? The semi-conscious state?
Yeah, let's go with semi-conscious state.
Okay.
Sounds good. Yeah.
Okay. Anyway, so the first thing I remember, however, is my parents it was Christmas Day, and they said we're leaving. I said, "You're leaving?" That was
You
my
just
first
got
memory.
here.
You just got here. Yeah, they've been there for like 3 days helping clean out my apartment. They were staying in my one bedroom apartment in Astoria, which that was a big accomplishment for somebody. I moved to New
Yeah.
York, by the way, with no friends and a few $1,000s, and within 4 years, I had my own apartment, single.
Fantastic. In Austin, that's a big deal when you're talking about the city. That's a big
Right,
deal.
and it was one bedroom, not just a studio.
Oh.
It was listed as a studio, but the bedroom had a sliding door partitioning the
Nice.
bedroom from the rest of the apartment.
There you
Yeah,
go.
we're making
That's
that a
a
one
two
bedroom.
bed. Yeah, that's 2 rooms right there. Mhm.
That's 2 rooms. Small, but still. $900 a month, and I also had like $25,000 in credit card debt at the time
Yeah.
because of a series of unfortunate events. Let's say
Sure.
from New York City, which is another
You did-
great story.
You did say American, so you got to have $25,000 credit card
Right.
at least one point in your life. So
Right,
yeah.
but I moved to New York with $5,000 positive money and no debt, like 5 years before. So
Right.
series of unfortunate events.
You were just financing your way. Okay, I got
Exactly.
it. Yeah.
Well,
yeah.
basically, like the rest of America, I lied about credit card applications to move to New York, and
Absolutely.
I just said, sure, I made 150,000 last year, and they just kept giving me these
Yep.
$10,000 credit card limits. Anyway,
I've heard of this.
yeah, fortunately, I hope they don't do it anymore, but I imagine they still do,
Yeah.
probably.
Not quite as bad for 2008, but
Yeah.
anyhow.
Anyway, so I was in the hospital for 3 weeks, and they did all sorts of nasty things to me that I don't want to get into on the call. Unless you really want to hear it, but probably not. They just stuck a lot of things inside me, and I had a naked X-ray with a tube going. Anyway, right. I was I was inside a giant copy machine, naked.
Oh, sweet.
Right, with like a glass, just imagine that. Basically, that's what it was like. Except, yeah.
Okay, I get it.
Right. Okay. Right. It was and then they had material going up inside me to glow the inside so that the copy would come out.
Fluoresce.
I kept
Yes.
telling the
mhm.
doctor, who was kind of like a Nurse Ratched character, that I was like, I really this is really hurting. She said, and she had like this accent. She was like, no, just a little longer, just a little longer. I was like, and then well, it's after 9. I can say it. I feel. Not many people can literally say their ass exploded, Evo. That's
Oh, but you did, and you did. Right.
Yeah.
You did, and it did. So,
all over the entire room.
well, you gave them warning, I figure. So,
It did. So, and then eventually, she tried to get me back on the thing. I was like, oh, please, no. Please, no.
Enough of the barium. Enough. Thank
okay,
you.
probably the barium. Yeah. See.
Yep.
Are you sure you didn't have a second medical degree? How do you know? Anyway, so a lot of those tests, and they kept trying to send me back to my apartment in New York by myself with like a nurse maybe to check on me once a day for an hour or something. And I said, no, I cannot not do that. I want to go back with my parents in Virginia.
Yeah.
And they had to like call a doctor and verify with him that he could give me the next series of care in Virginia versus New York.
Got it.
Home. And they kept trying to give me steroids, and except it was an Indian doctor, and he kept pronouncing it steroids.
Steroids, right?
Steroids. They really tried to get me on that, and Humira, Remicade, and I just didn't want to take it because I was still for so. Oh, the real funny part about this is my first sensation after my parents left. I woke up, and the first thing I did was to try to pay my credit card bill.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, just the juxtaposition of that. I just had this life-changing event where everyone assumed I should have died, and I looked dead.
I need to make a minimum payment.
Right. The first thing I did was, oh man, I gotta make this payment.
Yeah.
So
No, I'm going to Disneyland. I'm going to pay my credit card bill.
Exactly.
Right.
So
that's fantastic.
Anyway, so
wow.
Yeah, so 3 weeks and 3 weeks there, and I had the surgery was called an ileostomy. I forget the difference between an ileostomy and a colostomy, but I had an ileostomy back. It just basically means it refers to a different part of your colon that's been uh, bisected or bisected. But
Okay.
anyway,
Okay. Right.
basically, they replaced the plumbing and they had it coming out right here into
Right.
the plastic bag for
Mm,
6
right.
months, and then it
For 6
began.
months, you had that.
Yes, for 6 months. And it
Nice.
kept getting infected right around the insertion point, and it felt awful.
Mm,
So,
I'm sure. I'm sure.
But after 6 months, they reversed it in a procedure called a takedown. And all told, the 3 weeks in the hospital and the Virginia stay cost over $200,000. So I wrote, but oddly enough, our healthcare system breaks down costs by the different procedures and doctors and bills and everything. So I got like 12 different bills. So I was writing letters to like 12 different like doctors' offices and calling and calling and calling. And I got them all written off. I may have paid like $100 total for the whole thing.
Nice.
And
Right
now-
on.
And now, but the odd part about this is going back to our country is that it was because I did not have health insurance that I was able to write it all off. Now think about it. If I had health insurance, they would have billed me for like
Right.
80% of, 20% of the number, which would have still been like $40,000.
Yeah. Still money you don't have. Right. Yeah. So yeah, that's not helping anything. Right.
Right. So in that case, I was better off at the time to not have health insurance
Smart.
and also be broke because I
You
was
didn't know you
broke.
were smart to have no health insurance and be broke, but it was the best decision you'd made up to that
Right.
point. So I take it you're a supporter for Medicare for all.
Yeah, I'm actually trying to. That happened 10 years ago. I was actually trying to pitch that to the New York Times as a hook article. It seems like
Yeah. Here's a story of why.
right because my $200,000. If I'd been getting proper, if I just had checkups every year for the last 15 years of my doctor, that thing would have been nipped in the bud.
Yeah.
Eventually they could have convinced me to take the Humira or whatever, and I would have been,
Right.
if not fine, but mostly okay. My stomach wouldn't exploded. I would have been making a lot more money in my life.
Yeah. Right.
The state of New York wouldn't have been on the hook for $200,000.
That's right.
Yeah, so
All could have been better, but
could have been better. So I think somebody would publish that, don't you?
I would think so. You should write it. You're the writer, so why don't you just write it? Write it on spec.
Oh, everybody! They always tell you not to do that. In these
Really? Oh,
Yeah.
I don't know. So yeah.
Well, they don't want you to. I could, but they don't want you to send them like a whole thing. Like they don't want to read like the whole 1,000, 2,000 words.
Interesting.
Like that.
Okay. Yeah.
No, they just want to know what you can do, when you can do it, etc.
Oh, all right. Well,
Yeah,
you're
that's how
the
this-
expert in that to me, not me. I don't know.
Yeah, well, that's how this freelance writing thing works. You can
Got it.
anyway, since no one else is joining us, looks like you can ask me any freelance writing questions you want, or we could get into podcast talk real quick if you'd like to do that, because I kind of would.
Well, I got one story, which is
Jenny, I'm ready. Let's go for it.
We're ready
Jenny,
for it.
everybody. Jenny, where are you calling from?
I'm calling in from Virginia, and
Excellent. Okay.
it's about health, but not my health. It
Okay.
happens to be a story about this dog that I've sort of inherited lately.
What kind of a dog?
He's a yellow lab. In fact, let's see if we can get him. Come here, Spartan. Come here, buddy. Come on up here. Say hi. Come on. Hi. Say hi.
Okay. Wow.
So
If I had a
this is
social media person, I would be posting a picture of this dog right now.
Yeah, you win.
Right.
Right. Yeah. Good picture of a dog.
Here he
Where's my
is.
cat?
So he has a problem in which he sometimes gets ear infections, and I've never had a dog, so I didn't know that's what was happening to him. And he was just shaking his head a lot, and he was like really scratching at his ears, which then he started developing these like little cuts like on the very tips of his ear, and because he had these ear infections, he would be like scratching, and then he'd like scrape away the scab that would form on those little like ear issues, and then he would do the thing where he would shake his head, and all of the blood would spray out all over the walls, and very much looks like I live with a serial killer. But I got him some, ear stuff, and he had to wear a little cap on his head that makes him look like a Russian Jusha, like a Russian grandmother, a babushka, to keep his ears from flapping around so they could get a chance to heal. And now, as you see, he's fine, but I still have the evidence on the walls of all the lovely blood spattering. So that but he's all better, so it's fine. So.
Well, that sounds very traumatic. Did you ever watch the show Dexter about blood spatter patterns?
I was familiar with Dexter. It is a show that I was planning on watching at some point in time, but never did. But I am aware of it. So
I learned one thing from watching Dexter,
Oh, yeah.
and it's not blood splatter; it's blood spatter.
Oh, that's yes.
He actually makes that point at one point in time because I did not know, and I would assume it's a blood splatter, as you have said.
Story all wrong.
No, but when it's blood spatter.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know why, but
yeah.
And who knows? It could be bullshit because I got it from a television show, so it might not be true.
I mean, yeah, and later he became a lumberjack. That's a spoiler for
that was cool. He wearing your shirt. It's great. So
yeah. This is I got this from my aunt actually. Well, anyway, it's plaid. So, so Jenny, how traumatic was that for you?
Mostly it was traumatic because I didn't know what to do for him, and he was clearly like not a happy camper, and I felt like a terrible dog owner for not knowing that like head shaking was a sign of ear infection. Because had I caught it early, I don't believe it would have resulted in so much blood. But now I know, and hopefully I will not kill this dog before I have to give it back. So
I hope so too. I did not know. I felt bad. Kind of seems like the theme of 2020, honestly. Right?
Yeah.
Both shaking his head.
Dog shaking his head, just spewing blood around. Welcome to 2020.
Yeah, I actually actually had a chicken die on me this year also because I didn't know.
I saw that, and I wanted to ask you about the. Please tell the story.
Okay, I have a lot of stories, Evo. Apparently, all right. So I've had 2 chickens die this year, so you may be thinking the wrong one. Anyway, about 3-4 months ago, see, we have 8 chickens now. We used to have 10, and more than that previously. But anyway, there was a chicken. He wasn't getting in the chicken house. Where basically they climb up a ladder and then they jump. Chickens, I don't know if you know, like sleep perched on something like parakeets or whatever. So they get up in these perches, and one of them wasn't doing that. He was on the ground. I was like, "What are you doing, chicken? Acting weird." I thought maybe he got scared or something. So I put him inside, closed the door. And then the next day I noticed he was acting a little skittish of everybody. I don't know. And the people started pecking him. And I shooed them off, didn't think anything of it. And then 2 days later I was like, I need to separate them. And then but I didn't. I mean, I have a lot of chickens, and he wasn't a pet. He wasn't like my favorite chicken. So I did not want to pay $50 to take him to the vet, frankly. Lack of emotional bond and all that. I can replace him for $20, but still, he's a nice chicken. And honestly, it's because I didn't know that he had bugs crawling inside of him.
Ooh.
And so after I separated him, I noticed that chickens, by the way, can't wipe, obviously. So when their poop comes out, normally it just drops like just whoop, like on the ground. This chicken had like poop stuck to his butt. So I cleaned it off one day after I'd separated him. I separated him, by the way, in my abandoned duck cage. If you guys want.
I'm sorry, you're what again?
I have an abandoned duck cage. It's
abandoned duck cage. Is it a cage for abandoned ducks, or is it a cage for ducks that's been abandoned?
It's a cage for ducks that was abandoned by ducks who abandoned me by flying away.
Okay, got it.
But I also had a previous duck before that. Anyway, that's another story. We can do that on this call too if you want. It's an open line Friday, but it's also a 2020 story, which is again the actual theme of what I want to do tonight. So anyway, so basically, this chicken, me and my mom tried to save it with antibiotics and everything. We tried to we threw a towel down, put it down, laid it out, and I picked up his legs and looked at this chicken's rear end, and he just had just all sorts of parasites like crawling in and out of him.
Ugh.
And there was nothing we could do. It was really sad. And then we tried to clean him off, and it looked like an episode of Dexter with just gross stuff coming out. And I didn't know And I tried to help him with like buying like vitamins and stuff before, but honestly, clearly what I needed was some sort of antibiotics, and I didn't know how to get it. Sort
It
of,
sounds like I need some like deworming or something that was going on in there, but
yeah,
don't know.
I didn't really know at the time.
Hmm.
So now, if I see a chicken like not wanting to get in the pen, I would probably immediately separate him and then try to find some sort of supplement or pill specifically for that. That I can might be able to get from the vet, just buy it without having to pay for a whole visit or whatever. Anyway, so anyway, would you like to hear my duck story while we're
Well,
on the phone?
yes, I do want to hear duck story, but I first of all just want to understand for a moment here. So, why do you have chickens?
Uh,
For the eggs?
for the eggs.
For
Well,
companionship? You're
well,
killing
for
them and eating them? What's the deal?
no, for the eggs, I pretend they're my friends, but mostly they hate it when I hold them. But also this there was a there was a story about that in a classic movie. Why do you have chickens?
I don't know this movie
Oh,
or the
for the
story.
eggs. Who's that famous New York film director? He's Jewish and kind of short, and he's sort of outcast now. Mia Farrow. Who's that?
Oh, Woody Allen.
Woody
Yeah.
Allen's first film. Was it? What was that first big film he did? Everybody. Annie
Don't
Hall.
remember.
You're not a Woody Allen film. Not a Woody
Okay.
Allen fan. Okay. Annie Hall.
Yeah.
Still a great movie. Film students everywhere study it. I don't know if they do still, but the
Yeah, not
point is, he has all these like self-deprecating jokes in the film, and one of them was about he compared women to chickens, and he was like, "What?" He's like, they were like, "Why do you want a chicken?" He said, "For the eggs." He just anyway. It's a
got it.
little, right.
Got it. That's fine. I mean, I grew up on a farm, so I'm not weirded out by the whole thing. So
Right.
it's
No, we live in a I live in a just on the outskirts of a city, so kind of a rural area, but
quasi rural, right?
quasi rural, but only for like 5 minutes. Then you're right back in Wawa and
Sure.
country or whatever. Anyway, when I say
I get
five,
it,
we're like
okay.
3. We're 3 minutes from Wawa. We're in a small town right outside the city. Is what I'm saying. Anyway, and
You need a
that's
sandwich sometimes. Wawa's right there for you. It's good. So
yeah, it is. I by the way, everyone should get a Wawa rewards card because they offer the highest cash. No, why? What's wrong?
None out here.
In case
None in
they,
Arizona.
in case
No
they're
Wawas.
listening, by the way, for every $50 you spend, you get $4 back in equivalent food items like sandwiches or breakfast burritos, which comes out to
Nice.
8% cash back in food. No
Nice.
one else is offering you that on any
No,
level.
no.
Credit cards, rewards points, nobody. The most you're ever getting is like 5% back from anything. So that's a good.
All right. So now I understand the chickens. Now I want to know why you have a cage for abandoned ducks.
Okay. Well, about right at the start of the pandemic, my sister found a duck in a parking lot of a Lowe's parking lot by itself. It was a
Jokes start this way, but so my sister found a duck in the parking lot.
Anyway, I haven't formulated a joke ending to this one. but-
Okay. All right. There's no punchline. It's just a setup. Okay.
No,
Got
the
it. That's
punchline
fine.
is it's a crushing story. Okay, I'll get to that later. That was like a dark foreboding. So it's this little baby duck by itself.
A duckling.
Duckling. This is right after Easter, whenever that is.
April.
April. Okay. So
I'm not even religious, and I know when April. When I know
There you
Easter
go.
is. but that's
Okay.
fine.
Well, are you in Canada or America? I can't remember.
Arizona is still in America. Last I
Okay,
heard. So
all right.
yeah,
Well,
yeah.
then you're
Sounds
religious by virtue of being in America. Anyway,
That's exactly right. So I know a lot about this shit. Yeah, I grew up in Oklahoma, so Bible Belt was ingrained into my head, even though I was
there you go.
non-
You know everything.
was a
Okay,
Oklahoma
great.
person. Yeah.
Too late. I've seen everything. That's from Extras. Anyway, I don't know if you know that joke. No, it's
I don't,
Patrick
but
Stewart
continue.
on
We
the
have,
TV
I think
show.
there's like 3 different joke threads going right now, but back to the abandoned ducks.
right. Okay, right. By the way, you should watch the TV show Extras of Ricky Gervais, though. It's terrific. Anyway, Patrick Stewart. They find him looking at porno magazines in the back of a van, and
Yes.
he says, "It's too late. I've seen everything now." Anyway,
I love it.
Anyway, very odd show with a lot of weird celebrity, with a lot of big name celebrity guests in each episode.
I have
Anyway,
heard.
so my sister says, "Do you want this abandoned duck?" And I said, "Of course." So come get the duck, raise him, and I put him in a little box in this very room I'm at. By the way, my bedroom here. I got the computer here. I got the bed. Oh, by the way, I got new Star Wars sheets. By the way,
Of course you do, right? Because you're still 7,
I
right?
want to point those out.
What do you have? Is that a Yoda shirt? Yeah, nice.
The other side is Darth
Yeah,
Vader.
Vader, right on. So yeah,
It took a lot of effort to find these, by the way.
I'm sure it
That
did.
said something because I definitely still had mine from when I was a kid, and I recently sold them at a garage sale. But I kind of wish I'd kept them now.
I am
Oh,
terribly upset. I had a sleeping bag
Yep.
that my mom got me like right after the original came out in 1978, probably. And at some point in time, I tossed it. I really, really, really wish I'd have kept that original sleeping bag. But anyhow, please continue.
I got you. Well, let's make this duck story real short and sweet. The point is,
All right.
the duck quickly became attached to me, and he would like start to run up my shoulder and sit there and sort
Waddle.
of like
Waddle
bite my ears a little bit. He was very affectionate. I named him Baxter, kind of from the dog from Anchorman, of course.
Oh, right. I remember Baxter.
Baxter,
Yeah.
Baxter, no. Anyway,
Baxter.
right. Turned out to be an appropriate name for him. Yes.
Foreshadowing.
Yeah. So anyway, so he was well on his way to becoming an Instagram star. Everybody loved it. I had, my John Forte, formerly the Fugees, was a big fan.
Wow. He's one of the pate coming up, but anyhow, please.
Yeah. Anyway, he was a very cute duck. Everybody loved him. Very popular online. He would follow me everywhere outside. When we got outside, he'd just run back and forth with me.
Waddle.
I would sit in on live comedy shows and just be holding the duck, and like the comedians could no longer perform. They would say, "Dude, are you holding a duck?"
Exactly. I'm not ready for that. I'm not. Yeah.
No,
I got my whole heckler set right here, but I'm not ready for a dude hanging onto a duck.
Not ready for that. So anyway, 3 weeks old, and just for context, I live with my parents, live in my parents' house, but also my dad's a contractor, and one of my sisters works with my dad all day long in the office downstairs, so she's here almost all the time. And her daughter, who used to live here, also was here, and she's here a lot. And being a kid, I can't hardly get her to do anything with me. Anyway, that's the point. So she wanted to play video games with me. She only wants to do like these. And I said, let's play with Baxter. And she didn't really want to. Right. So I was like, how could you not want to play with this duck and instead want to, play video games? I do not understand. Really, genuinely don't. But she loved the duck too. She used to hold it in her lap and do homework, Zoom homework during the early days of the pandemic. Anyway, so we take him outside to clean out his little bucket he was living in. He was starting to get too big for it, but I didn't know about what to do about putting him outside. And so I put him down and I said, hey, you have to watch out for that duck because he's going to walk right in between your legs. And she says, I know what to do. I stepped on a rat once and she said, and I felt bad. And then at that very second, she stepped on him. And she's 13. She was 12 then, but very big for 12, like 5'7" or whatever, maybe 6. And anyway, and she used to be a wrestler, so she's not a waif of a girl. Let's just say that.
Yeah.
And so I screamed, "You killed my duck!" And then I ran inside. Because can't yell at a kid for doing something that she didn't mean to do. But as much as you want to, you just can't. It's just could not let myself. So I barricaded myself in my room. By this time, like within 30 minutes, like my whole extended family, because I have a brother and 2 sisters. The 2 sisters are married. And so like 12 family members were over within an hour at this point, like a downstairs conference. A little ridiculous, all pounding on my door, pleading with me to come out. Just I guess they all just wanted to hug me and make it better, but I was not ready for that. And
sure.
And then I finally came out after like an hour and a half. And my other sister had gone out the store and purchased baby chickens for me to replace Baxter.
Okay.
And I said, I cannot accept your chickens right now. I am sorry.
Still not ready.
No,
It's a little fresh.
little fresh.
We're talking hours, right? Single digit hours.
An hour and a half later.
Oh yeah, that's a little early.
Right, and it'd be like, and also it was
It's a different
demeaning.
species.
Right, it was demeaning to my love of the animal. It'd be like if I ran over your dog and I went out and said, "I'm sorry, I killed your dog. Here's a cat I just bought you."
Here's two. I got you two. Right.
Doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Right.
2 cats make up for 1 dog. I guess 2 chickens for 1. And when did all this happen? How long ago was it?
And right after Easter, I said.
Right after Easter. That's right. Okay, just wanted to make sure. So early in the COVID days.
Early in the COVID. Right.
So call back to your David Carradine comment earlier. Yeah. So it's like in Kill Bill 2 and then I just realized Kill Bill.
Yes.
Yeah, I'm terrible. That's why I wanted to make sure it had been a few months before I made that.
I understand. No, I don't get as I don't get emotional about it anymore, but I really did at the time. But
I'm sure you did.
And it took a lot of coaxing for her to halfway apologize. Like because I guess her mom and my other sister had told her, I don't know what they coached her on. I'm not sure, but eventually after 2 or 3 weeks of the best apology I got, and I may ever get, she said, she said, "I know it was my fault. I did not mean to." Right. Because previously she had actually blamed it on me.
Well, yeah, 13 is a weird year, right? That's just a shitty time.
She said I distracted her. But the point was she was like texting at the moment she stepped on him.
Yeah.
And how could you not look down? Because also she grew up with these chickens, right? So she was
right. So they're used to having animals underfoot. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So so that's what I thought.
Wow.
Anyway, and then like a week later, they planned, also without telling me. I don't know how. Like my family has this weird thing where they'll tell one person and then assume that everyone has gotten the information.
Oh, sure, right.
So they planned this entire funeral and didn't tell me. So they were like, "Everybody's here." I was like, "What now?" So I was like, "Okay." So then I did a Facebook Live funeral for Baxter. We put him in a little shoebox and I held him up, and my niece was not only not crying. I have a still of her, actually with like a half weird smile, like a serial killer, which was a little disconcerting. So I'm not sure what that was all about. Was she not sad? I don't know.
Truly a psychopath? We're not really sure, right? So
I don't know. I mean, I'll wait a few years before approaching that one with her, I guess.
Yeah, but I definitely keep an eye on her.
And then my dad was making jokes about it during the funeral.
Wow.
Like he was again disregarding my feelings about this.
Yeah, completely.
Who'd been like riding on my shoulders for like weeks at that point,
Oh, that's rough, man.
Yeah. So that was Baxter, and then so after like 2 months, I ordered some more ducks from California. I found
sexier.
There's a place called Metzer Farms somewhere in California.
Okay.
They will sell you any kind of poultry, either as an adult or 1 day old baby.
Oh man.
Or a fertilized egg overnight.
Sure. Right. That's nice.
For only $50 shipping.
What a deal.
Yeah, what a deal. So basically I paid $75 for 3 baby ducks. And what's up?
Do you still have the ducks, or is that part of
They've abandoned me?
Oh, that's right. These are the abandoned duck cage, right? Yes,
they're mallards, and they eventually flew away.
They do that. Birds tend to fly.
Well, see. I don't think Baxter would have flown away. That's the thing.
Oh,
you see, because
he was
birds,
attached,
right? Yeah. Well, and these these new ducks, despite the
imprinted.
Despite the fact that I had them at one day, they sort of imprinted on me, but they also imprinted on themselves.
Oh.
And they weren't quite as attached to me as Baxter was, and especially after I put him outside, because, I mean, 3 ducks inside like a little 2x2 bin is going to get messy a lot faster than 1 duck in a 2x2 bin. So they had to go outside quick. So I bought this. So I bought this $250, do it yourself, put it together cage. They basically give you like a big box of things and you put it together, and it's still out there, and the ducks are out there for about 4 months, and then they flew away.
Wow.
But by then they wouldn't even let me pick them up.
See, that's the thing. Ducks become teenagers. They do that. Humans become teenagers, and they, step on them. So
That's what people said. But again, it was just because they had their buddies to like count on, and they didn't.
Sure. Right. Strength in numbers. Hey, we're going to take this thing on. Right. So.
But, well, I don't know. I don't know what would have happened with Baxter if I put him outside. He would have been terrified. But I don't know.
You'll never know. You'll never know now.
So, but I would like to have gotten just one duck from Metzer Farms, but funny thing, places like Metzer Farms disregard like your ability to bond with a duck or a chicken. Also, they will not sell you one duck or one chicken.
Oh,
you have to buy at least two.
Interesting.
They believe they need companionship, but how are they less? Are they less emotionally complex than a dog or a cat? Because a dog's love companionship also.
I would think so. Right.
I mean, dogs love having other dog around.
Sure, of course. Yeah.
But so
I don't know. I'm not a. I used to know the word for the scientific binomial for duck, and I've lost it, so I can't.
I see.
I know Spanish word pato. There you go. So, but that's about all I know.
I don't even remember what a binomial is, Evo.
Yeah, Latin binomial, scientific notation. So we're Homo sapiens, but I forget what were they. God, I used to know what ducks were. I lost it. I've lost it. I've got a lot of random weird shit. Do
you have a scientific degree in something?
I did study zoology when I was in college originally.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
All right.
So yeah, I think most of has been replaced. I know a lot of the scientific binomials of the plants, medicinal plants, specifically in Arizona. So that's probably what's occupying most of those brain cells. But
yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, cool. You want to do some podcasting chat real quick?
Sure, let's do it. What do you want to know?
Well, I was let's talk about this Wondery deal.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Big deal, obviously. Now I noticed online, the audio fiction community was dogpiling this news. Did they just? I don't understand.
Well,
help me to understand that one, Evo.
I can't speak specifically to why the audio fiction community is doing it, but there's a lot of poo-pooing over the thing because it's consolidation.
Of course.
And so now, a big platform, a relatively new entrant to the space, because Amazon didn't even have podcasting when did they do that? September?
Yeah.
I think is when they became a part of that, right? So it had been nothing until that time. I think a lot of independent podcasters see the consolidation in the space as a bad thing, and will just have the podcast listening apps and directories continue to focus on and feature the big heavy hitters, right?
Right.
The same thing that happens in every other industry. Sure. It's very difficult to tune in to watch cheaply made films. You just don't have that anymore. I guess you can go to a TV station if there's still a local access channel, but we don't really have that. Even YouTube is now featuring the more professional stuff that comes along.
And even of those, you wouldn't even know about it. You have to go to, for instance, to David Lynch's IMDb page to find out he does like 4 or 5 short experimental films per year, and they're actually on YouTube. But you would never know that unless you actively searched out for them.
Right. So I think that is the primary concern that people have about this is more consolidation is bad for indie creators. And I don't disagree with that. I think there's some validity to the argument. I think there's a lot of validity to the argument, right? But I tend to have a broader view of what it actually means for all of us in the podcast space. In fact, later on next week, I'm going to be on a show, on a podcast fiction show, talking with a couple of people about this. And I know they're going to be taking the "this is evil" position, which means I, as the professional contrarian, must take the opposite position and talk about why it's
a podcast fiction show. This is a podcast fiction chat show.
No, well, so the people I'm going to be chatting with are creators of podcast fiction, and they have a podcast about podcast fiction.
Oh, okay. You don't want to say which one yet?
Sure. I'll call it. It's called Tuned In, Dialed Up, or is it Dialed Up, Tuned In? One of the two. I forget the way that it's that it is.
Sounds familiar. I think I've heard of it. Okay.
Yeah. So I think Ellie and I are going to be debating the merits of not just that, but also lots of the consolidation that has happened to this space since Spotify started throwing their big dick money around back in 2018.
Yeah.
But anyhow, about Amazon and Wondery deal specifically. So
I thought it was. I don't understand why Hernan would want to bail, because he built this great company.
I think he's cashing out. Number one,
Right.
I mean, and then two, he's doing the whole FIFA battle right now. He's got the whole betting
you
thing.
think that's the only reason why he's cashing out?
I don't know that it's the only reason. I don't know that is the reason or a reason, right? But there's a lot of heat around that stuff, right? And
I don't know, but I mean, I'm sure he was doing all right with the company anyway.
He's totally doing all right, but I'm sure he did okay with that, rumored $300 million deal, which I think is kind of a bargain. But I think they could have got more. Well, I don't know. I'm not an M&A person, so I'm not here to judge that one. But to me, it makes perfect sense, because out of all of the podcast big hitters, which used to be Apple, only Apple. Mm-hmm. Then it became Spotify as they're rolling things around. And now it's Amazon spending this big money. Amazon is the only one where Wondery made sense, because Wondery has a unique ability in the podcasting space. I'll change when I say that. Wondery has an ability to create big shows that get a lot of attention, that cost a lot of money to make. They're not doing cheapo $5,000 per episode. They're at 20 to 50,000. Each episode spends probably 125 to 300 hours of people labor to put those things together. Think of all the research and all this together. It's a big production for these guys, and they're able to draw tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands, at least over 100,000 people listening to each of these shows and hanging on their every word. All the 70 shows that they have. But for Amazon, Amazon is, as they've got the movies, they've got television, they've got a lot of things they could do with these stories, but they've only have those two options, movies or TV. Well, now podcasting.
Yeah.
So let's take this thing that we have here, this script, this concept, this idea, not ready for a movie, could be a miniseries, but shit, that's expensive. What if we spend a tenth of that and make a really high-end podcast? Which probably also causes the people who are making podcast fiction some consternation, because podcast fiction is very hard to monetize to anything close to making your money back, because these things take a lot of work. And oftentimes they're drawing on, let's say, less than big Hollywood names. Right. They're drawing on talent for writers. They're drawing on talent for actors who are professional, but you've been in the game. There's different levels of players, right? There's AAA ball and then there's major league stuff, right? And all the steps in between.
Well, sure. Speaking of that, there's actually, I wrote about one that has some big name Hollywood actors in it that is independent, The Oyster.
Yes. I like The Oyster. It's a really, really well done show, I think. It's weird.
Yeah, it is. It's got Giancarlo Esposito, one of the hottest actors in the game right now.
Exactly right. I mean, big names.
Come on.
And you're starting to see more of those. We're seeing more of those things happen inside. But if you're an independent podcast producer, you can't afford to pay those people that. You've got to be positioned. You've got to have some money somewhere.
Yeah. Well, I don't know much about this company that I interviewed, but I guess anyway, I don't want to speculate. But they had enough cachet to get him and some big name actors in the previous shows too. Darkest Hour, I think. Anyway.
Yeah. So we're seeing more. And I think part of the concern is now suddenly that will be the magnet that attracts all of that high end talent. And so where we were seeing some actors or some talent to hey, I'll take a risk. I'll take a significantly reduced fee if this was a Hollywood production, and I'll go do this cool thing because it's fun. It's interesting. We're doing weird things nobody else is really doing. And this is a new era of podcasting. This is a new medium for a lot of these people. Let's jump on that. Well, now we got, Amazon bringing real Hollywood studio money in to throw at these projects. Why would you, as a regular, as an actor, take a low paying job because it's fun and cool when that's gone, right? It's like trying to get, it's hard to get a big name blockbuster actor to appear in your indie film now. It wasn't so hard to do that 50 years ago, but here we are. So it's basically the Hollywoodization, I think, is what's causing a lot of people major concerns over that. But I think it makes perfect sense for Amazon to buy Wondery. It's pipeline.
I got you. Well, let me ask you something that the creators of The Oyster asked me. Let me just. The first podcast I wrote about over 4 years ago with Mac Rogers was Life After, and that was, I don't know if you remember that.
I do remember that one. Yeah,
Right,
that was that was part 2 of the GE stuff, right?
yeah, GE
Yeah.
podcast, GE, the GE
The Message.
podcast theater supposedly, and that was the only 2 series
Yep.
they make. What I mean, what if something like that happened, or like an NBC or a CBS stepped in and didn't buy, but say partnered with these like independent companies, like like Sean, Fable and Folly Network, and did
Sure.
something. I mean,
Yeah.
do you think people would be in favor of that? Or
Well,
would they-
again, I don't want to speculate too much on what the community is going to think, but
Yeah.
back to Life After and GE. So SAP is doing that as well.
I'm sorry, who's that?
SAP.
I don't know what that is.
It's one of those giant 3-lettered acronyms. It's like a $50 billion company that,
Really?
everybody's, anybody in IT knows them. So it's like IBM, it's like GE, except it's
Okay.
SAP. They don't make any
All right.
consumer level goods. So they don't,
That's
GE makes
right.
washing machines. So you know them. SAP makes a bunch of B2B software and stuff. Huge company, like multinational company. And they're now funding and paying to have created podcast fiction for them. I know this because I've been involved in 2 of the projects that they've done.
Okay.
So, the SAP is a client of mine. I should put full disclaimer, little asterisk here. They are a client. So you're seeing other companies, and I think that's really exciting. And when you talk to the people like Sean from Fable and Folly, he gets that. Like, hey, there are some corporations who have piles of cash that are wanting to do something new and innovative, thanks to GE with the Messenger all the way back in 2014. More companies starting to do this. They're going to turn to independent producers to say, hey, can you make this stuff? Although, will they do that now? Now that there's Wondery over here owned by Amazon Studios, if you're SAP or you're IBM or you're some other big company or Ford Motor Company and you say, I want to do this, do you trust the money to an independent, or do you pay more and go with Wondery so that it's become part of the Amazon pipeline? Because how cool would GE love it if Afterlife and The Message got picked up as a limited run television series?
Sure, and it's weird that they didn't, because they're great series.
Yeah, I think so too.
Really well.
Yeah, I really do.
Really well done. Well, hey, you're right about that. I'm sure they would rather pay more to be on Amazon.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing, right? That is the challenge. So how do you compete against that now? And
Well, you
and
do like Sean's done. You keep adding shows to your network and getting getting more time that way.
There are other ways to you've got to compete. And I mean, we let me stop for a second here and get my breath. Okay. When you watch a movie, it used to be several years ago, back when you and I were kids, if you watched a movie, it was a Paramount Productions, and Paramount was the only production company involved. That was it. Yep. Today, when you watch the new blockbuster film, how many different production companies show up in the pre-roll? 3 or 4. It's never just done by Paramount. It's Paramount in conjunction with the Janus films, and then in conjunction with Red Light films. With this, there's a whole series of things that stumbled together. And I don't know how to pull that apart. I don't know enough about the Hollywood industry to know how to pull it apart. All I know is that every movie I've ever seen in the last 5 years has had at least 5 different production companies attached to it.
Yeah.
Will podcasting go that way?
It could.
Probably. I don't know.
Oh, well, we're starting to see that now with Q Code, like a division of labor.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And now with them buying Steve Wilson, what's that say? So, some Apple cred there on that one. So I like the Q Code shows. I refuse to listen to any Q Code show until it's complete.
Okay.
Because I've been damaged by enough of the Q Code shows, because I like Q Code, I really do, but I think sometimes they put way too much. What's the word I'm looking for? They give their audience too much credit to know what the hell is going on with those loud crashes and bangs. And if I have to wait a week in between, I've lost the thread, and they're not doing a previously on Lost, right? And we lose that connection. So I wait till the Q Code production is done and then just binge it. Not only necessarily in one sitting, but that's the only thing I'm listening to in my leisure listening time till I get that story consumed. Much like, I read a book that way.
Yeah. When you were talking about that, for some reason, it made me think that one of the few celebrity interviews I've turned down is with Chloe Grace Moretz on a Q Code production, where she was playing a girl who was the victim of like a cult possible child trafficking organization. And
Borrasca.
was that the name of it? I can't remember.
Yeah, Borrasca. Well, that's the plot of Borrasca. So yeah.
Oh, anyway, just
Spoiler.
right. Anyway, the point was I kept listening and hoping the thing gets better, but the story never had a happy ending. So I was like,
there is no happy ending for Borrasca.
I was like, I got to the end and I was like, I can't write about this.
See, I like Borrasca. And unlike the left-right game, which was like, what were you doing? That was just,
well, that didn't really go anywhere, but that's okay.
well, almost by definition, the left-right game, it was designed not to really go anywhere.
Well,
but
I mean, it didn't really. I mean, it got well. A lot of sci-fi gets too unwieldy when it tries to explain itself.
Yes.
I mean, it's like just let the thing be the thing.
Yes, exactly right.
Yeah.
Yeah, that is definitely a challenge that, I mean, I'm a huge sci-fi fan. You must be as well, sitting on a mattress that is covered with, Star Wars X-Wing fighters and stuff. You as well. That's how I got my break in podcasting. I was doing a science fiction talk show back in the day.
Really?
Back in 2004. Actually, it's 2002, before podcasting. We were doing that.
Okay.
Yeah.
They still had the sci-fi magazines on the shelf at Barnes and Noble
then. Yeah. My two big wins in podcasting for interviews. I have interviewed Sir Arthur C. Clarke twice and Ray Bradbury.
Wow.
So yeah, I know a lot of others, but what's that again?
Isn't one of them dead now? Or
both of them are dead now. Yeah, they are both dead now. But so that was kind of cool. I mean, that was like, oh shit, I'm interviewing and a lot of other really big name people too, which is a lot of fun. Except I realized during that show, I hate doing interviews.
Really?
Just don't like them. It's not, I mean, I'm not bad at it, but I don't. See, my problem is like, this is fine. Being interviewed or just having a conversation with somebody is great and fine. Yeah. But when we were doing the show, when I was interviewing people, there's an agenda. There's I've got marks I've got to hit. My job is to run the show. I'm the on-air show runner, if you will, not from a TV, but actually it's my job. Somebody's running the board. My job is to keep the show on track. So I can't pay attention to what's being said as closely as I should, because I'm thinking where I need to go. I'm looking at the clock. I'm looking at I just found myself not enjoying it. So I told my co-host and the other people on the show one day that I no longer want to do interviews. I will be there for everything else, but when it comes to the interviews, just don't want to do it. So,
that's too bad. I mean, what if they made it a little more free flowing and conversational? Would that have helped?
I don't know. Yeah, because I've done it before. But when I lived in Thailand, I became the co-host of the Bangkok podcast. We resurfaced that show, and that was great. But I let my partner Greg do most of the interviews. I think I might have done 2 interviews. So it just wasn't really exciting for me. I don't mind talking to people. That's fine. But, I'm no Kara Swisher. Yeah. That's not my job to ask those kind of hard questions. And, I guess with that, I'm really interested. It might be fun. And the ones I did, I was quite interested in, but it's like, hey, we need you to interview this person who's got this company that does this thing. Like, that's just not, I'm not a good, that's people's like, you have that skill set. I don't have that skill set.
I love it. I dive into it, but let me jump out back to my inverse interview real quick. I want to get your take on something. If I
okay.
This letter says, hey Josh, your skills and background seem like a good fit. It's for the interview, and I wanted to invite you to share more about yourself. Are you available for a phone call? Does that sound like he's basically offering me the job and he kind of wants to meet with me? Because keep in mind, I've worked with his editor already. He published my Chris Gethard interview like 3 days ago, and during that process I applied for an associate editor position, which he's now interviewing me for. So I've already worked with him. So does that sound like he kind of wants to give me the job, or he just sort of wants to meet me, find out more about my background? What do you think?
You know what? It almost sounds like that's a standard form email
sure does. Yeah.
That is sent out. So because that's weird that if you've just done like 2 days ago, so maybe it was something that was in the pipeline. It's automated. Because that's a little off-putting to me. So, but the good news could be like exactly what you're thinking. Maybe I've got it, and so now this is the process that they go through, and so it clicks off a chain of emails, and here you go. So, I don't know how to read that.
Yeah, I noticed and they're part of the Bustle Network, so that's a big company. I noticed within a couple hours of applying, I got like connected to like their website, which is really odd. And I tried to sign up, but it wouldn't let me yet because it said I needed an access code. I was like, so why did you? I was like, so why did you send me to this website? It's very, very weird.
So that's encouraging. That means that there's a process. It's a shitty process, but there's a process that they're throwing people through, and so maybe you're in that.
Do you think I should ask him how long? Let's see.
What's the question again? Reread the question.
Do you think I should ask him how long the interview is going to be?
No.
I should not ask him that.
No, and I can speak from experience on that, because that question is one that I employ when when I used to not want to be interviewed for something.
Okay.
Back in the day, I would request all the time to be interviewed for podcasts and stuff, and I was kind of getting out of podcasting back in the time, and so I was like, I had a rule like, look, if I don't know the show, I'll only do it, but I can't be on for longer than 30 minutes.
Oh,
and
right.
So,
it implies to have a time limit. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So that's what I use when I didn't really want to do the show or wanted to make it really, really short. So I probably wouldn't ask that question. Okay. I mean, I just say, yeah, let's do it.
I did. We scheduled a time. It's Monday at 3. But he just said he wants to share more about yourself. It says,
again, that's a little strange,
it
right?
Does sound like a form letter, but well, anyway, I've written like 150 freelance articles for Forbes, Deadspin, San Francisco Chronicle, etc. Basically, almost more than almost anybody else who doesn't have a full-time job. Frankly, honestly, and more and I've written. And I've written about podcasting in more places than I think anybody else now, also with Inverse, frankly. But
probably
seven different places. I can't say that anyone else has written for that many. But
no, you said you wrote for Deadspin?
Yeah, I have a Deadspin article. I profiled David Arquette, and but funny story about that is I'd actually interviewed him. Funny story. I actually interviewed him before for a film he was producing about criminal justice, which is really interesting, called The Survivor's Guide to Prison. So I met him the previous year. It's a really great film. I'll send you a link. Really eye-opening if you care about criminal justice or just want to learn more. It basically weaves like talking, like CNN type talking head like numbers, like 300 million people this per year. That with personal stories of people who've been in prison and are getting out. It weaves those two things together to form a compelling narrative. Anyway, so very, very, very well done. So I'd already met him, so I had a relationship with him. I had his cell phone number, but I didn't want to talk about wrestling with him because he was the WCW champ in 1995 of World Championship Wrestling out of Atlanta, owned by Ted Turner, David Arquette, the actor.
In 95? This is when he was the wrestling champion?
Sorry, I gave you the wrong number. 1999. I'm incorrect.
David Arquette.
That is correct. It was a very, very weird time in history. At that moment, Ted Turner had sort of like given a blank check to the owners of WCW, and they decided that the way to compete with Vince McMahon of the World Wrestling Federation was to just throw celebrities out there. There's like more.
Okay. Now I'm making a little bit more sense to me. So, okay.
They had rappers out there. They had Dennis Rodman on WCW for a brief period, if you remember that.
I remember that.
Yeah. Jay Leno wrestled in the WCW against Hulk Hogan. Against Hulk Hogan. He put Hogan in an armbar. Anyway. Okay. It was a weird time. So I didn't want to ask him about that. I want to
see Jay Leno wrestle Bruce Campbell, and just it's all chins, just whack each other with their chins would be great.
That would be fun. So anyway, so when I met him, I wanted to ask him about this, but I figured he'd been so embarrassed about this time in his life that he did not want to talk about it. And then 3 months after this, boom, I had a wrestling match in LA, and I was like, what? And so I felt like I had a front row seat to this, and so So I sort of pursued him. I said, hey, let's write about this. And he said, okay, contact email my assistant. So I emailed his assistant. She didn't get back to me for 3 weeks. Eventually she passes me on to his manager, who takes another 3 weeks to pass me on to his producer, who takes another 3 weeks to pass me on to his press agent, who finally says, yeah, you can meet him. All that 2 months of prep to get an interview with a man who I've already met and have his cell phone number. All right.
That's insane. You
It
could have
is insane.
texted him.
I did text him originally. Said, let's do an interview. He said, great. Email my
Yeah, but now here, go through the process.
right.
Yeah.
And so, okay, so that was like November of 2018. And unfortunately, that week, he had to pull out of the match because he hurt his elbow or something. So it didn't happen. So his next scheduled match was December 9th of 2018 in Philadelphia. So the night, December 8th, I'm about to drive up to Philadelphia. I live in Virginia, so it was six and a half, 7 hour drive.
Yep.
I'd been booked for Deadspin, by the way, at that point for $350, which is great, but still, it's not so great if you have to drive 7 hours to meet the guy and get an interview and then write a.
You don't want to do your hourly rate on that when it comes tiny. So yeah.
Right. No, you don't. Plus at the time it was pitched as like a 1,200 word thing at the time, and it mushroomed to like 2.5 times that eventually. But so the night before, his press agent had been fired, and he had a new press agent, and his new press agent said, "We don't want to do the interview anymore because he has a film crew now following him at these wrestling matches to do a documentary film about wrestling, which is now out. It's a pretty good film called You Cannot Kill David Arquette. I've seen it. I can recommend it. It's pretty good. Pretty good. You have to take my word for it. And
all right.
I hope you do. So anyway, but the producer of the wrestling show named Tommy Dreamer, formerly of ECW, if you familiar with wrestling at all.
I am not much. So yeah.
Okay. Tommy Dreamer, he's about 48, and he's one of those guys that just loves the storyline, the drama of wrestling. He's been in it for 25 years. Now he sort of runs his own independent company in Philadelphia. He used to be on TV all the time. Now he's not, but he's comfortable with putting on a show for 500 people as opposed to a TV audience because they're passionate, and he knows they're going to pay every time. And he still has, because of his name, he still gets a lot of top level talent to come wrestle for him for $200 a night or whatever he pays him. So I get there. So that guy is already knows about it and knows I'm coming, and so he lets me in backstage, which is kind of wild as a journalist. Like, it felt like my first real night of being a journalist, started getting backstage at something and seeing them work on these moves and finishes and stuff. And then David Arquette comes over to me and says, "Hey man, you ready for that interview?" And then I realized at that moment, his whole life, and probably the life of many big Hollywood actors, is they're handled to like a T, and they don't know what's going on from one point to the other. They're just like, "Oh, what's my 5:30? Okay."
There's that guy. Right. Yeah.
Right. Hey, David, and his agent, his assistant, tells him everything. She's like, "And don't forget, tomorrow you have to do this, and at 8 you're on a podcast." He's like, "Okay." So he didn't realize. And what was I going to say? No, your press agent.
Yeah. No, hell no. Yeah.
So
have the conversation.
We did a quick 7-minute interview right before a match, and he had 2 other people interrupt him during that 7 minutes also, because he was about to go on, or at least he was about to get ready to go backstage and, I don't know, do whatever else he was going to do. Actually, or promote the show more. He signed autographs, waved to people out front or whatever. So I got that, and then I sat down in the audience, and it turned out he had like some other people there, and I don't know. I was humble bragging. I was regular bragging to the people next to me. I was here in this thing with Deadspin. They happened to be some handlers of his somehow, oddly, crazily enough. And they were like, "Oh, do you know about the film?" I was like, "No. What about it?" They were working on the film. They just happened to be sitting next to me, which is really weird. And then they like followed him around the whole time. Basically, in Philadelphia, the wrestling ring is a former bingo hall. So after the match, the wrestlers go out front, sit at a table, and sign autographs and sell T-shirts or whatever they have. So Dave was doing that. These guys are with him there the whole time. He has a tag team partner named RJ City, who's sort of a flamboyant fellow who I assumed was gay, but then later I had a friend tell me he wasn't. So anyway, it doesn't present an issue. Just when I called him gay in the draft, my friend said, "Oh, he's not gay." I said, "Really?" Okay. Anyway, so I called him flamboyant in the article, and but he teases it on Twitter. He's one of those people who talks about the Golden Girls, and he does like stuff like, and he has a show where he makes coffee in his underwear on YouTube. So he's yes, it's called RJ City Has Coffee in His Underwear, and he has other people on with him. Very weird thing. Anyway, he's a fun character though. I really like the guy. He's got that old Hollywood moxie. So anyway, after the show, I emailed him and I said, hey, I realize you're kind of like central to the story in a way I hadn't realized, because he sort of humanizes David Arquette and prevents the fans from booing him, because he's like this big flamboyant character who either draws their heat or is like yelling at the audience, or sort of he sort of shields him from all that stuff.
Sure.
Because he knows the ropes, so to speak. So I emailed him and said, hey, I realized it, and I'd already interviewed him previously for this article, and so I said, I realized this thing's more about you than I thought, and here, I'd love to talk to you some more about it. The next day, I'm home working on the story in a Starbucks, and I get a call from Hollywood. RJ City has forwarded this email to David Arquette's press agent, who previously who told me he wasn't going to be doing an interview.
Right.
And so this guy is like cursing me out. He's like, what the F, man? What the F? He's like, I thought we had a deal. Bro, huh? So I'm like, he's like, man, he's like, what's going on? Are you going to write this article? Huh? What are you doing? Huh? I was like, so I'm getting shaken down, like, in a Starbucks, with the guy living with his parents by some big Hollywood agent.
Right.
Meanwhile, I realized that if RJ City did that, I've lost my connection with him too. And yes, he basically muted me the rest of the time. And so from that and the David Arquette interview, I was like, I didn't know what to do for months. I was like, I didn't want to like lose my connection with David or his press agent for future work, as a journalist. So I waited 3 months and I talked to David Roth from Deadspin. Eventually he's like, yeah, man, we should still do it. So I did something pretty unique, I think, in the history of internet journalism. I stalked David Arquette's Twitter page all the way back for an entire year for any mention of wrestling, and used those for quotes, and then copied all the quotes with dates, times, hyperlinks, and then copied all the interviews and watched those, and then paid like $10 on all these wrestling sites to watch all his matches for the last year to get a full picture of something that I could have gotten with like a 2-hour interview with the guy, but I could no longer get that interview.
So you had to get it from publicly available information, right? So
right. And so I did that, and then I interviewed a lot more people that worked with him, knew him.
Right.
And then at the same time, Deadspin, I don't know if you're aware, they were going out because of the Hulk Hogan, Gawker angle.
Oh yeah.
Hulk Hogan and Gawker sued the company that bought Deadspin.
Right.
They were bought by a private equity company who at that time gave a directive to the staff members to stick to sports. That was the title of the memo. Stick to sports. Now, Deadspin, if you weren't aware, you are aware. Anyway,
I know of Debs. I'm not a follower.
For anyone listening, they were a very, very left-leaning sports blog site, but 5% of the time they wrote about Donald Trump and candy and what's on television. Not only sports, but mostly.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
They were a pretty wild bunch, so they don't take direction too well, and so like they started like really going out there writing things that were clearly not sports, just to really screw with management.
Yeah.
And then some of them started getting fired.
Right.
As time went on, some of them started pink slipping the boss and getting out of there. It got pretty bad. And so I was panicking because this article was going to be a big break for me. I'd only
on the sinking ship. Yeah.
Yeah. And I was like, 350 is pretty good. And I was like, if I could get that like once a month or twice a month.
All right. Yeah. Take that. Sure. Yeah.
They had like 2 million followers on Twitter, So basically everyone quits, and my article goes up on the very last day of Deadspin's previous existence.
Now you killed Deadspin.
Yeah, and it was public. It was Halloween 2019 that the thing was published.
Wow.
So So basically, if I had agreed with David Arquette's press agent and waited to interview him, like to promote his film, basically they wanted me to interview him, but months later, in some nebulous future, as a way to promote the film as a vehicle for it. But I was
Right.
like, they didn't offer me any payment or anything. Well, I don't know why they wouldn't. By the way, I was independent. They should have offered me something. I would
Yeah, it
take
would have been a better deal, right?
I would have taken it. $1,000 to wait on it. Sure, I'll do that. I don't know why they didn't, but anyway, so yeah, so it came out, and RJ made up with me in his own way. He when the story came out, he wrote a little poem to David Arquette about their friendship, and then he messaged it to me on Instagram.
Aw.
But he still never talked to me since then, also. But I guess you only get so much.
No, your breaks,
And
you
then-
got to count them when you can.
Right. And then later, 6 months later, when they started, 6 months later, they're starting to do promotion. The film is about to roll out, and they're starting to do real promotion for it with, LA Times, New York Times, whatever. Then I was like, well, shoot, I should have gotten on this train too. But then it was too late. It was sort of, plus I wasn't feeling great from Crohn's disease at the time.
Yeah.
Like the second thing.
Right.
But like some guy from The Ringer, they flew him out to LA, and he got to work out with David in his backyard on the wrestling ring he built in his backyard, and did like a full 2-hour interview. And
Could have been you,
go
man.
through all the shit I did. But then guess what? The film never came out 6 months after that because of the pandemic. Because
Right.
they were
And
trying
then
to put it in theaters, and then there were no theaters.
No.
No theaters.
What a comedy cacophony of errors through that whole thing. So
Yeah. Now, meanwhile, David Arquette never knew any of this because I like the guy. I know. I still text him, every 2-3 months when something major happens, and I didn't want to tell him that your friend sold me out, and your press agents are manipulating you. So
man, too wild.
well, it is. If he's one of the 2 people watching now, he knows, but I suspect not.
Too wild.
So that's that. That was fun.
Good story. Plenty. So
Well, we're both getting tired. Sounds like the end of our time.
yeah, it's I'm looking at my time and thinking I need to go. So it's
hear
been a fun time. Thanks for
Absolutely.
hanging out, Jenny. If you're still there,
Mhm.
thanks for
Yeah,
listening
are
to our
Gentlemen,
I,
have a
I
wonderful
figured
day.
you are still there.
silliness.
Yeah.
So-
This is anyway. Well, I am. I don't
Happy New
know.
Year.
Yeah, Happy New Year. I'm gonna try to. I'm gonna try to promote this a little better tomorrow and try it again. See if I can get more people. I don't know. Maybe
Yeah, well,
maybe it was I. Yeah,
ping me. I don't have anything going on. I mean, it's like I'm going
Yeah,
anywhere. So,
right. But I understand I didn't promote it much, but still, I posted it 2 hours ago on my Twitter and Facebook with, theoretically like 6,000 people should see that, and no one else got on.
It's also New Year's Day. Everybody's hungover, so
Yeah, see, so maybe Saturday night will be better. I don't know.
I don't know. We'll give it a shot.
But,
So
and if that doesn't work, then you're right. I'll just have to book guests like a regular show.
there you go. Just do it the right way, or not
if
about the right way. Just do it the way.
Right. And then if so, do you think I should make it a storytelling show or like a topic of the hour kind of thing?
So I don't know. I just kind of roll with what feels
Yeah.
right with you. I mean, I think it could be interesting. As long as people like it. You never know what's going to grab somebody's attention. So it's hard to say. Experiment, play around
Yeah,
with it.
I
So.
know, but until I nail it down, it'd be weird to edit this down into a podcast. If
Yeah, I would not recommend doing that. Yeah, it was a little all over the place. Over the place.
Right,
So
right.
yeah. So
But
all right, man. Well, have a lovely evening,
Mm-hmm.
and we'll chat on the Twitter sometime. All right.
Okay, great.
All right, buddy. Take it easy.
All right, bye everybody.